Title of the first section today is Graphing, Equations, in, point, slope, form. In this section we'll graph equations which are in point-slope form instead of slope-intercept form. Definition or equation for point-slope form is y minus y1 equals m, and in parentheses x minus x1. Using this equation, we'll be able to take equations and graph equations that are in point-slope form. First equation we'll graph is y minus 2 equals 2/3 x minus 4. From this equation, we can figure out what the slope is and also a point, which is x1, y1. M equals, in point slope form, m is the number in front of the parentheses, so in this case m equals 2/3. And we can also get a point that we can put in parentheses, x comma y. The point is the number after the minus sign for the x, and also the number after the minus sign for the y. You can also think of the -4 as doing the opposite. So if it's x minus 4, the x value would be the opposite, which is +4, and y minus 2, the opposite of -2, would be +2. So the slope would be 4, 2. Using the slope and the point, we can draw an xy axis to graph this equation. We'll first start with the point, which is 4, 2. So x would be 4, and y would be 2. From this point, we can follow the slope. If you remember, the slope is rise over run. So 2/3 will go up 2 spots, and to the right 3 spots. So from this point, we'll go up 2 spots, and also over 3 spots. So up 2 and over 3 will be our second point. And we can take these 2 points, connect them, and that would be the graph for the equation. Second equation for the section is y minus 3 equals, in parentheses, x minus 1. From here again, we can find what m equals, the slope, and also find a point. The slope m again is the number in front of the parentheses. If there's no number in front of the parentheses, we can always put a 1, so the slope would be 1. For the point x comma y, if we have x minus 1, do the opposite of -1, which would be +1, and y minus 3, the opposite of -3, would be +3. So graphing, we can graph the point and use the slope. Graphing the point first, 1, 3, the x value would be 1, and the y value would be 3. If we have a slope m equals 1, we can make this a fraction. Anytime you make a number a fraction, we can put a 1 on the bottom. So the rise over run would be 1 over 1, which means 1 spot up and 1 spot to the right for our second point. Connecting these 2 points will give us the line for the equation. And last equation for the section, y plus 4 equals -2 x plus 1. Again, in point slope form, we can take the equation and figure out the slope as well as the point. M equals, m again is the number in front of the parentheses, so m equals -2. And the point x comma y, if we have x plus 1, you take the opposite of +1, which would be negative 1. And if we have y plus 4, the opposite of plus 4 would be negative 4. Using the slope and the point, we can graph this equation. Point negative 1, negative 4. Negative 1 would go to the left 1 spot, and negative 4 would go 4 spots down. The slope we have, m equals negative 2. Again, we can make this a fraction. Anytime you make a number a fraction, we can put a 1 for the denominator. Negative 2 means we'll go down 2 spots instead of up 2. So 2 spots down from the point and 1 spot to the right. And taking these 2 points, we can connect it to get the graph for the equation. Title of the last section today is Write an equation in point, slope form and in slope intercept form. In this section, we'll take an equation and write the equation in point slope form, and also write the equation in slope intercept form. First question, I have a point 4, 2, and the slope m is negative 5 over 4. So taking a point and a slope, we can first write the equation in point slope form, which is the equation we did in the previous section. The equation is y and minus the y value. The y value would be 2 equals m. M in this case is negative 5 over 4. And in parentheses x minus the x value, which is 4. So our first answer, first equation, is y minus 2 equals negative 5/4 times the parentheses x minus 4. This is the equation in point slope form. And the second answer, we can take this equation and write the equation in slope intercept form. Slope intercept form is solving for y, getting y by itself, and having slope intercept, or mx plus b, on the other side. First step to this equation, y minus 2, we can leave the same. And on the right side, we can distribute. Negative 5 over 4 times x would be negative 5 over 4x. And negative 5 over 4 times a negative 4. A negative times a negative would be positive. And when we're multiplying fractions, we can make everything a fraction by putting a 1 on the bottom. And we'll have negative 5 times negative 4, which would be positive 20. And 4 times 1, our denominator would be 4. Simplifying, we have 1 or y minus 2, negative 5 over 4x, and 20 divided by 4 would be 5. Last step, to get y by itself, you get rid of the minus 2. The opposite of minus 2 is plus 2. So we can add 2 to both sides, and we'll add it to the like term, which is 5. So our final answer, y equals negative 5 over 4x, 5 plus 2 would be 7. So our second answer to the question in mx plus b form, or slope intercept form, is y equals negative 5 over 4x plus 7. Second question for this section. Point is negative 2, negative 7, and m equals negative 3 over 2. Again, taking the point and the slope, we can plug in the values for the point-slope form equation. The equation again is y minus the y value, which is negative 7. So we'll have a minus from the equation and a negative from the negative 7, equals m, which is the slope, negative 3 over 2, and then parentheses x minus the x value is negative 2. So again, we'll have a minus from the equation and a minus from the negative 2. Simplifying, minus minus, we can change to 2 pluses, and minus minus, we can also change to 2 pluses. So we'll have y plus 7 equals negative 3 over 2 and x plus 2, which will be our first answer, which is the equation in point-slope form. Second part of the question, again, we can take point-slope form and rewrite this in slope-intercept form. To do that, the y plus 7, we can leave the same, and we can distribute or multiply the negative 3 over 2 into the parentheses. Negative 3 over 2 times x will be negative 3 over 2x, and negative 3 over 2 times a positive 2. A negative times a positive would be negative, and the 2 we can make a fraction, put it over 1. Multiplying 3 times 2 would be 6, and the denominators 2 times 1, which should be 2. Simplifying, y plus 7 equals negative 3 over 2x minus 6 divided by 2 would be 3. And last step, to get y by itself, so where you have y equals mx plus b, or slope-intercept form, we can subtract 7 on both sides. So y equals negative 3 over 2x, and negative 3 minus 7 would be negative 10. So our second answer to the question in slope-intercept form is y equals negative 3/2 x minus 10. And last question for the section. We'll have 2 points. The first point is negative 1, comma 0, and the second point is 1, comma 2. Using these 2 points, we can write 2 equations. The first equation in point-slope form, and the second equation in slope-intercept form. Since we have 2 points, but we don't have the slope or letter m, we can use these 2 points to find the slope, or find what m equals. If you remember from previous sections, the equation for the slope m is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. y2 and x2 are the x values in the second point, and y1 and x1 are the values in the first point. So plugging the numbers in, y2 minus y1, the second value 2 minus the first value 0, and the x values, second x, which is 1, minus the first x, which is a negative 1. And again, we'll have a minus from the equation and a minus from the negative 1. Simplifying, 2 minus 0 will be 2. 1 minus a negative 1. Minus a minus, we can change to 2 pluses. 1 plus 1 would be 2. And 2 divided by 2 would be 1. So the slope for this question, or between the 2 points, the slope m is equal to 1. Taking these values, we can write the equation. If we do first point-slope form, we can do y minus the y value. Since we have 2 points, you can use either point and get the same answer. If we use the first point, the y value would be 0. So we'll have y minus 0 equals m. M we found, which was 1. And in parentheses x minus the x value. Since we used the y value from the first point, we'll use the x value from the first point also, which is a negative 1. If you did use the y value for the second point, you'd use the x value from the second point also. Simplifying from here, y minus 0 would be y. 1 we can leave the same. And minus minus we can change to plus. So we'll have our first answer, which is in point slope form. Y equals 1 times x plus 1. Writing this equation in mx plus b form. If you distribute the 1, 1 times x would be x, and 1 times 1 would be 1. So our second equation in slope-intercept form, or mx plus b form, is y equals x plus 1.